Hello everyone from wherever you are tuning in from around the world. Welcome to the WCG for the Grand Final of the 2022 TexBet Australia T20 Big Bash, which sees the two-time champions HOWZAT taking on the emerging power of this tournament, the NIFF NUFFS, for the right to be crowned this year's champion. Both of these sides head into the Grand Final with a 100% record in this year's tournament. Both have knocked off last year's defending champions Young Money Cash Money en route to the big dance. So it's fair to say we've got the two best sides in the tournament fighting it out for this year's prize. These sides have met once previously at the Australia Day T20 Big Bash. They met in quarterfinal 3 at the 2020 edition in an absolute epic. Scott got HOWZAT away to the perfect start, but Henry Perenara would remove Scott for the first time in the tournament, and HOWZAT would set the NIFF NUFFS 24 for victory. The NIFF NUFFS was seemingly cruising to a maiden semi-final berth, with skipper Henry Perenara plundering the HOWZAT bowlers to all parts of the arena. The match would go to the final over, Perenara hitting the first ball of that over to the boundary to put them seemingly home. However, Todd Lavin would pick up the big wicket of Perenara to give HOWZAT a chance. 2 were required from the final delivery, and with Mangione scrambling through for a single, we were going to a super over. And it was skipper v skipper for the super over. Perenara hammering the first delivery of Scott's over for 6. However, with the very next ball, he hit the bin, and their innings was over. HOWZAT was seemingly on their way out of the tournament, with Scott struggling to lay bat on ball for the first 5 deliveries. It went down to the final delivery of the super over, with Scott managing to float one over the ropes to send us to a second super over for the first time in history. HOWZAT would win the toss and bat first on this occasion, with Scott hitting the first 3 deliveries from Perenara's over to the boundary to put HOWZAT into a strong position. It was 15 to get for the NIFF NUFFS, and although Henry Perenara began the second super over well, a couple of swings and misses meant that his side needed 9 runs off 2 deliveries, and a T20 epic finally came to an end when Perenara hit Scott over the fence, which saw HOWZAT prevail in perhaps the best match we've ever seen at the tournament. So if this year's Grand Final is anything like that quarterfinal back in 2020, then we are in for a treat. As we take a look at both sides' road to the Grand Final, HOWZAT overcoming wet up and 2 inches short of a length in the group of death, then overcoming the defending champions Young Money Cash Money in the quarterfinals, then easily accounting for 6 offenders to get to the big dance. The NIFF NUFFS overcoming Young Money Cash Money and the WCG Babes in Group B, then easily accounting for wet up in the quarterfinals and getting past Smack My Pitch Up in that epic semi-final. The captains are in the middle and ready for the toss. Oh, I'm in the toss. Have a bat first. So the NIFF NUFFS skipper Henry Perenara wins the toss here in the Grand Final, and he is elected to bat first, and that is a good omen to begin with, as only one side has ever successfully chased to win a Big Bash title. As we take a look at his side for this year's decider, as mentioned prior, they head into this year's Grand Final with a 100% record to date in the tournament, thanks largely to Joel Wodjick, who has done the business with both bat and ball, and he'll be relied upon heavily with the bat once again in the big one. As we take a look at the 2-time champion side for this year's big dance, they will be led by Brendan Scott once again, who has been fantastic with the blade in this year's tournament. He is the leading run scorer of this year's edition, and HOWZAT will be looking towards him once again. Daniel Arnold and Costa Savas have provided good support with the ball, and they'll be looking to do so once again in the decider. And just before we get underway, we'd like to thank our major partner for this year's tournament, TexBet, who have been fantastic since jumping on board. Bet local, bet with Tex. So here we go, ladies and gentlemen. HOWZAT looking to claim a record 3rd Big Bash crown. The NIFF NUFFS looking to claim their first. Let's get it on. And it will be Joel Wodjick who will get this innings underway for the NIFF NUFFS. Was fantastic in their semi-final win against Smack My Pitch Up. Can he get the NIFF NUFFS off to another fantastic start in this year's decider? So 2 tournament heavyweights, 1 Big Bash title up for grabs, and it's going to be Scott to Wodjick first up. Here he's in now over the wicket and begins with a good length delivery, and Wodgick gets an inside edge onto his body and moves through for a single to begin with. So a good busy start here for the NIFF NUFFS, who are away in this year's decider. And Wodgick off the mark with the very first delivery. Scott to continue to Wodgick in the opening over of this year's grand final. Here he's in now. This one's a good length delivery. And Wodgick goes for the booming drive and gets a thick inside edge onto his foot. So this was a close call here from Wodgick. Oh, that could have gone anywhere, but he survives. Aggressive intent with Wodgick to begin with. As Scott is in once again to him now. And it's another thick inside edge as it hits him on the foot once again and drops down for a single. So Wodgick looks to be going after Scott early on. He was there to drive. He just lost his shape, but he's going to move through for a single nevertheless. No wicket for two in the opening over, as Scott will continue to Wodgick. Here he's in now. This one's a full toss, and Wodgick gets his way through mid-wicket for the first boundary of this year's decider. Wodgick off to an impressive start in this year's grand final. It was a thick inside edge, but it's 4 all the same. So Scott is in for the final ball of the opening over. Here he's in now. This one's a wider delivery outside the off stump, but it's let go by Wodgick and the umpire. No wicket for 6 after 1. It's going to be young Costa Savas to bowl the second over of this year's grand final. Here he's in now, and this one's a good delivery. It's a back of a length delivery which stays a little low on Wodgick as he attempts to pull it, and it hits him on the thigh and he moves through for a leg bye. So not the wide first up that we've been accustomed to from young Savas, who was bang on the money to begin this grand final. He features in his third decider, so he's one of the more experienced campaigners out on that field at the moment. He will continue to Wodgick, who moves across his line. Oh, he's got an entry to the keeper! Savas picks up the big wicket of Wodgick in the grand final. Wodgick's aggressive approach to begin this innings comes undone. The youngster picks up a massive wicket in this year's grand final. It's an absolute beauty to remove Wodgick, as it has to be. That's the early strike HOWZAT we're looking for, and it belongs to the youngster. 1 for 7. Well, Joel Wodgick fails for the first time in this year's tournament. And that wicket now brings the skipper, Henry Perenara, to the crease at number 2. And he's going to have to produce a captain's knock here to get them out of a wee bit of trouble. So it's the youngster, Costa Savas, who has his tail up to bowl to Perenara for his first delivery. Here he's in now, and he's pushed this one down the leg side. So that one will be called a wide. So unfortunately for the youngster, he's been rocks or diamonds in this year's tournament. But when he's on, he's near unplayable. He'll continue to Perenara in the second over. Here he's in there. Oh, and it's an absolute jaffa, which goes right through the NIFF NUFFS skipper. So the two-time champions are on top at the moment in this year's decider. That's a beauty. The NIFF NUFFS 1 for 8 in the second over. As Savas will continue again now to Perenara, and it's a full toss and it's driven away on the offside, but it's fielded by Brendan Scott there at cover for no run. Geez, that dive looked like it happened in slow motion. Scott moving like the old man that he is now. As Savas will continue again now to Perenara in the second over. Here he's in now, and this one's a wide delivery. Yeah, it has been called a wide. So his radar off since the wicket here, young Costa Savas. Here the NIFF NUFFS 1 for 9 in the second over, with Perenara just looking to rebuild after the loss of the early wicket of Wodgick. As Savas is in once again to Perenara. Oh, and he's got another one, the youngster, has he? He has! He's got Perenara for a duck! And the NIFF NUFFS are in all sorts of trouble in this grand final. Savas picked up 2 big wickets in the semi-final. He's now picked up 2 huge wickets in this year's grand final. The youngster standing up for HOWZAT on the big stage. And are the two-time champions motoring towards a third title. Well, the NIFF NUFFS in big trouble in this year's grand final, as that wicket now brings Todd Lavin to the crease. The last hope for the men in pink has stood up with the ball and in the field. Can he do it with the bat now? So it's going to be Brendan Scott who's going for the kill in this third over to bowl to Lavin first up. It's a good length delivery, and it's a solid forward defence on the offside as Lavin moves through for a single to get off the mark. So a good busy start here from Lavin, who is off the mark in confident fashion as he nearly steamrolls Scott in the process. The NIFF NUFFS 2 for 10 in the third over. As Scott will continue again now to Lavin, and he's pushed this one down the leg side, so that will be called a wide. So no side in this year's tournament has bowled more sundries than HOWZAT, and it's amazing to think that they are in this position with that statistic. Here is Scott, will continue again now to Lavin, and this one's a half volley. Oh, and he gets this away on the offside, and he gets it away to the fence. That's a big boundary there for Lavin. He has had the tournament of his life in this year's edition, and he's standing up in the big one. 4 runs. So the NIFF NUFFS 2 for 15 in the third over, as Scott will continue again now to Lavin, and this was a full wide delivery, but it has been let go by the umpire, much to the dismay of the crowd and Lavin, as that looked touch and go. So things just going the two-time champs' way at the moment. However, if Lavin can get him up towards that 20 mark, they'll have something to bowl at. Here is Scott is in once again, and Lavin is forward confidently and defends on the offside to Savas for no run. So good this from Lavin, who is not the pushover he used to be, as Scott is in for the final delivery of the third over. Here he's in now, and this hits Lavin on the leg, and he's going to scoot through for a leg bye, or he more hobbles through there, as he's got a clear injury here, the big man, but he's still at the crease. Yeah, I think this could have been close if Scott was behind the stumps or a direct hit, but Lavin survives. He's doing it tough, the big man, but is he going to be a hero for the NIFF NUFFS? 1 to go. So it's going to be Daniel Arnold to bowl the final over of the innings. As in now, round the wicket, it begins with a shorter length delivery as it goes across Lavin, and Lavin doesn't make contact. So a dot ball to begin this final over. The NIFF NUFFS 2 for 16 with 4 deliveries remaining. Can Lavin get him up to some sort of respectable total? Here is Arnold is in once again, and this one's an absolute jaffa, which has the beating of Lavin, all ends up. So it's 2 dots to begin this final over. Brilliant start from Arnold. Arnold to continue around the wicket to Lavin in the final over. Here he's in now, and this one's a full delivery. He places towards Savas, who I think has dropped it. But Arnold is claiming this has hit the bin, so is Savas. Well, they're pleading to the umpire. Well, I think the umpire has said not out. Let's take a look at the replay. It's played uppishly from Lavin. Oh, it hits the top of the bin. He's got away with one there, the big man. Well, the call finally goes the NIFF NUFFS way. So 2 deliveries remaining in the innings, as Arnold will continue around the wicket to Lavin. He's in now, and he beats him outside the off stump with another beauty, as Lavin is in clear discomfort. So it's 2 for 16 as we arrive at the final delivery of the innings. Can Lavin find a boundary to push him beyond that 20 mark? Or can Arnold bowl a maiden for the final over of the innings? Here he is in now to Lavin. Here he's in now. This one hits Lavin on the arm, and it goes through to the keeper. So that'll be a dot ball to end with. It's a maiden for Daniel Arnold in this final over. The NIFF NUFFS have been restricted to 2 for 16 in this year's grand final, and the 2-time champions will be backing themselves to make it 3. So the NIFF NUFFS have been restricted to 2 for 16 in this year's grand final, thanks largely to the bowling efforts of Costa Savas, who picked up 2 for 3 in his solitary over. The big wickets of Wajik and Perenara. Lavin fought at the back end of the innings, but a brilliant final over from Daniel Arnold restricted the men in pink. It's going to have to be a great bowling effort to get them home in this one. 17 to get for HOWZAT. And no surprises, it will be the skipper Brendan Scott who will get this run chase underway for the 2-time champs. Has been nearly faultless with the blade so far in this year's tournament, and with only 16 on the board, the NIFF NUFFS are going to have to get him early. So it's skipper v skipper for the first over, as Perenara will be into Scott. He's in there and begins with a wide full toss, and Scott can't get this away. So it's not the greatest start from both skippers in this run chase. It's a genuine loosener there from Perenara, and it's a tired looking stroke from Scott. Perenara to continue to Scott in the opening over of the run chase. Here he's in there and he serves up a full toss, and this one's a better stroke from Scott. He drives this down the ground for the first boundary of the run chase. He beats Wajik there at cover as Perenara serves up another full toss and is dispatched. No wicket for 4. So Scott away here in the run chase as Perenara will continue to him now. Oh, and this one's bang on the money as this one stays a little bit low, and Scott is good enough to keep this one out. So they know they have to get the HOWZAT skipper early as Perenara will continue to him now in the first over. Oh, and he's pushed this one down the leg side, so that will be a wide. So not the greatest of starts with the ball from the NIFF NUFFS skipper. They can ill afford to be giving away sundries with such a low total on the board. As Perenara will continue again now to Scott, and he goes right through him. There's a massive appeal here from the men in pink, and the umpire says not out. And Perenara cannot believe it. Well, this is a huge moment in this year's grand final. The NIFF NUFFS are incensed. Let's have a look. No, there's clear daylight between bat and ball. That's a good decision. Must have flicked his leg on the way through. So Scott survives a nervy moment there. Perenara is in for the final ball of the over, and Scott is happy enough to let this one go outside the off stump. No wicket for 5 after 1. It'll be Joel Wodgick to bowl the second over of the innings. As he's in now to Scott over the wicket. It's a back of length delivery, and Scott plays his way on the offside, and it finds its way to the boundary. A fist pump there from Scott, as his side is now more than halfway to the total. He's away to another good start in this year's tournament. He moves to 8. How's that? No wicket for 9. So 8 to get for the two-time champs. As Wodgick will continue again now to Scott. And this one's a good delivery. Bang on the money on a good length. And Scott is forward and defends well. Well, you fancy it's now or never here for the men in pink. This is a big over in the context of the grand final. As Wodgick will continue again now to Scott. And this one's a full toss. Oh, he's got an edge through to the keeper. He has! Scott's gone for 8. And the NIFF NUFFS are back in this grand final. That is just what the doctor ordered for the men in pink. Scott fails for the first time in this tournament. It was a full toss that was there for the taking. But the NIFF NUFFS won't mind how they got him. They've got him. Scott goes for 8. How's that? 1 for 9. So the grand final is alive and well here, as that wicket now brings Daniel Arnold to the crease at number 2. Has not had a stick since their first match of the tournament against Wet Up. Can he stand up for HOWZAT? So it's Wodgick into Arnold for his first delivery. It's a full delivery on Arnold's pads, and he clips this away for a boundary first up. So just like that, Arnold is away. They're within 1 hit of a 3rd crown. No pressure whatsoever for Arnold. So Wodgick is in for the final ball of the second over. Here he's in now, and it's a full delivery, and Arnold is forward and defends well to end with. 1 for 13 after 2. HOWZAT are in touching distance of a 3rd title. However, if the NIFF NUFFS can pick up a wicket here, they know they've got Costa Savas next at the crease. It's going to be the skipper, Henry Perenara, to bowl the 3rd over, and they need a wicket. So 4 to get here for HOWZAT, as Perenara bowl the 3rd over of the innings. Here he's in now, and this one slides down the leg side. No, it hasn't been given a wide. So I think this must have brushed Arnold on the way through. But either way, Perenara escapes sanction. So you can see Todd Lavin hobbling in the background, who will have to bowl the final over should we get there. As Perenara is in once again to Arnold. Oh, and there'll be no reprieve here, as this one's clearly down the leg side. So that'll be called a wide. So HOWZAT inch ever closer to a record 3rd crown. 3 to get now with 2 wickets in hand. However, if the NIFF NUFFS can pick up Arnold here, they'll have Savas to bowl at. Perenara is in once again to Arnold, who moves down the wicket. And I think this one hits him on the thigh as he moves through for a leg bye. So the men in charcoal inch ever closer. It's 2 to get now. Here Perenara will continue to Arnold in the 3rd over. Here they're in desperate need of a wicket as this one stays a little low. And Arnold is forward and defends well. So the NIFF NUFFS are seeing their hopes of a maiden title evaporate before their eyes. But is there one more twist in this year's grand final? Here is Perenara, will continue again now to Arnold around the wicket. He's in now, this one's played to Lavin on the leg side. Oh, and Arnold sets off for a single, and then smartly decides to turn around. Or perhaps a few nerves as they get close to the target. Arnold sets off, and then decides against it. Good decision in the end. So Perenara is in for the final ball of the 3rd over. Here he's in now, and he's dragged this one down the leg side. So scores are level in this year's decider. HOWZAT need just one more run to lift a 3rd crown. The NIFF NUFFS skipper has not had the greatest of grand finals, and he may have just gifted HOWZAT victory. As in for the final ball of the over, it's a full toss, but Arnold can't get it away, and we're going to the final over. So just 1 to get from 5 deliveries for HOWZAT, and it's going to be Todd Lavin who will bowl the final over of this year's grand final. He stood up with the ball so far in this year's tournament. Does he have one more effort in him? Surely we're not heading to another super over between these two, are we? So it's Todd Lavin to bowl the final over of this year's tournament. It's one to get for HOWZAT. Here he's in there and begins with a good length delivery outside the off stump. And Arnold is happy enough to let it go. So a good start from Lavin to this final over. It's one to get from 4 deliveries. And to be fair, the NIFF NUFFS have done well to take this as deep as they have. Here Lavin to continue around the wicket to Arnold. Here to back of a length delivery, played on the offside, well stopped by Wojcik. Oh, and Lavin nearly throws this into the boundary. It's nearly a calamity, but it's a dot ball nevertheless. It's a brilliant stop from Wojcik. And Lavin has nearly thrown it into the boundary, but it's a dot. So it's one to get from 3 deliveries now. Another dot ball will make things very interesting as Lavin is in once again to Arnold, and this one goes down the leg side. It's an anticlimactic way to end this year's grand final, but HOWZAT are your 2022 Taxpet Australia Day T20 Big Bash champions. Just like Young Money Cash Money the year before, they go from the outhouse to the penthouse in the space of a year. It's a shame that we end in such an anticlimactic way, but HOWZAT won't care, and they're champions for the 3rd time. So although the NIFF NUFFS made a fist of it in the end, HOWZAT proving too strong in this year's grand final as they claim a record 3rd crown. Costa Savas breaking the back of the men in pink, picking up 2 wickets in his solitary over. And although they got Scott relatively early, Daniel Arnold has guided HOWZAT home to be this year's champions. Commiserations to the NIFF NUFFS who simply didn't have enough runs on the board, but this will not be the last you see of them. Here the leading run scorers of the tournament. Scott finishes with 106. He was the leader with the blade for HOWZAT as he scored 91% of their runs this tournament. Joel Wojcik also had a brilliant tournament with the blade for the NIFF NUFFS, finishing 2nd with 82 runs. And Schaefer finishing with 65 for Young Money Cash Money rounds out the top 3. As we have a look at the leading wicket takers for this year's tournament, it was the youngster Costa Savas who finishes top of the charts with 6 wickets, 4 of which coming in the semi-final and the grand final, as he stood up when needed for the men in charcoal. Jake Kasacha and Brendan Scott finishing with 5 apiece to round out the top 3 of this year's edition. So the MVP of this year's tournament goes to the HOWZAT skipper Brendan Scott, the only man on both lists, as he guides his side home to a 3rd title and his 2nd MVP in 3 years, to walk away with all the chocolates from this year's edition. So congratulations to HOWZAT, Australia Day T20 Big Bash champions for a record 3rd time. It's their 1st title since 2018 and they will party long into the night. We hope you've enjoyed all our coverage of this year's tournament. Thank you to TexBet, and it's bye for now.